Hey, welcome back. Glad you can make it. Before we get into the video, I'd like to say two things. One, thank you so much for everyone who's subscribed and tagged along for this journey so far. I really appreciate it. This is still very new to me, and I'm trying to make the best of it, and it's been a really steep learning curve. But that's part of the challenge, right? So thank you, everyone. And secondly, for those of you wondering, because I know there are among you, yes, my beard is getting longer and longer. I haven't shaved in 2 days, so it is what it is. No kidding, of course. I haven't shaved in about 2.5 weeks, and probably not going to shave for another week. Long story short, there's a pretty cool project coming up with my local barber, and for that reason, and for that reason only, I have not touched my beard or hair. So stay tuned for that. And that being said, let's dive right into the video. So the final part of the 3-part series, moving to Norway. Let me tell you, that was not what we anticipated it to be. It was stressful, to say the least, and it kind of started with a whole lot of stuff going wrong. And that's kind of where we're going to start. So we moved here end of September last year, and 3 days before our moving day, or the plane leaves, left Berlin, we had our last day of work, and we were going into that day with a lot of excitement, knowing that in 3 days time we would be out of the country and living the dream of Norway. So I went to work, counting down the hours as you do, and get a phone call from our landlords in Norway, saying that our apartment that they have been renovating, or they've been working on finishing by the time we get here, was not done. So I was naturally very pissed, because we relied heavily on the apartment being done, and it wasn't 3 days before we left. So I called my boss and we talked it through, and for some miraculous reason, she managed to get us a alternative within like 2 hours of that phone call, which is still mind-blowing to me up to this day, because finding a flat somewhere is never easy, and 3 days before arrival is absolutely ridiculous. But we managed to do that, or she managed to do that, and so my heartbeat kind of went down a bit again. I went on with my day, handed in all my stuff at work, and that whole weekend, that was a Friday, that whole weekend then was basically just about packing up the house, packing boxes, and cleaning up, because we had a moving company come on that Monday afternoon, Monday evening-ish. So we had hired someone to drive all our stuff up here. It's a small family business, and they specialize in Scandinavian moving. Super friendly couple. They got there on time. We packed it all up and handed over the keys to our subletter, and that was it. That was 12 years being in that apartment, locked and done, which to me was a weird feeling because I lived in that apartment for 12 years. My girlfriend, she moved in a little bit later, so I had the full, there's a lot of history there, so it was a bit of a weird feeling driving away, but at the same time was also a fantastic feeling because we knew that next morning on that Tuesday we would be out of the country and starting something new. Little did we know at that time there would be more hiccups coming, and that, yeah, it was a strange 2 days, I would say. And the next day, on that Tuesday, we drove to the airport. Morning, I think it was about 10 or something. And as we all know, it was still during the whole, pandemic time. So we had prepared beforehand, obviously, and had all the paperwork done, and did another backup call to the Norwegian immigration office just to be sure everything was in order and we could, get in. Because at the time, both Germany and Norway, or Germany was red, so there was actually no in and out. But because I had a working contract and we had a housing contract, there was an exemption rule, theoretically, that allowed us to enter the country. And yeah, so we were very confident. Got on the plane in Berlin, flew to Norway, landed in Oslo. And I remember this because it was a different situation than usual, because normally in a non-pandemic time when you arrive in Oslo, you don't go through the customs, or not necessarily go through the customs sector, where they have the little booths with the officers and stuff. But in this instance, everyone did. And I remember asking my partner in that line while we're queuing up, "Are you nervous? Do you think it's going to work out?" He's like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, yeah, it'll be fine. And then we get to the end of the line. I look down all the cubicles with the officers. I'm like, she looks nice, he looks nice, he looks nice. And that guy looks like a total douche. Well, guess which officer we got? The douchebag. So, we get to the counter, and there's this awkward silence of nobody's talking. We're standing there, paperwork in hand, Henri in his bag, super stressed out, and just looking at him. He was on his computer doing something else. And then after like 2 minutes, maybe, he was like, "Yeah, what do you want?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, we want to get in. Here's our paperwork, moving to Norway, start my job next week, yada yada yada." He looks at it and he's like, "No, I'm not gonna let you in." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna let you in. Please take a seat over there. Here's an email. Buy a ticket back home now. Send me the receipt, and I'll have someone pick you up." I'm like, "What?" I mean, we were in shock in that moment, because we didn't think that was going to happen. And so I tried to talk to him. At this point, my girlfriend was already in tears. And he just said, he blabbered on with some dumbass excuses. Long story short, we had to sit down in this corner. We called it the corner of shame, because that's where they put everyone they were sending back home. And we were not the only ones that day. And so we sat there for probably like 15 minutes, waiting. And then we got pulled back up to the cubicle where the guy was sitting. At that point, he had pulled up another officer, so there was two of them now. We had to retell our whole story. And then we ended up, I said, "Look, if you don't believe me, you can call my boss. Here's my phone." He's like, "Okay." Gave him the phone through the window, and he called my boss. They were on the phone. I think the call went on for like 2 minutes. At some point we heard her crying through the phone, through the glass, and he handed us back the phone. We're like, okay, so what's the plan? It's like, yeah, no, not happening. And at that point, my girlfriend was chatting with my boss on WhatsApp and asked her what happened, and she's like, didn't he tell you? And we're like, no. She's like, yeah, well, he's sending you back. No chance. And later, I'm just jumping forward a bit, we found out later that he accused her of importing people. So at that point, my level of frustration was about yay high. We got sent back into the corner of shame and called back up. At this point, it was 3 or 4 officers in the cubicle. We told our entire story again. And yeah, I'm just going to fast forward. This went on for about an hour. Naturally, we missed our connecting flight. I'll get to that in a moment. So then finally, I think that was towards the end of that hour, we were still sitting in the booth of shame, or the corner of shame. And the, I think, 4th or 5th officer at that point comes up. Super nice guy, our age. He's like, look guys, I'm sorry you had to wait so long. We discussed this as a team and with my manager, and we've come to the conclusion that we can't send you back. This would be inhumane considering you have nothing to go back to. All your stuff is on the way, you have a job, blah, blah, blah. And in that moment, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was just, we almost passed out with relief. And they let us through, and we saw that they had pulled off the initial officer that we were talking with. Lucky for us, I guess. I don't know what it was. He might have had a bad day. He might have been super frustrated for whatever reason. But that was definitely a unnecessary experience. And yeah, we missed our connecting flight when we finally got through, or not quite yet. We had about 5 minutes and still had to go test for the 5th time. So naturally we missed it. And then had to go to our airline counter. They were super nice. They just replaced our ticket without even asking why. We just said, look, customs took longer, yada yada. She's like, yeah, give me your tickets, and here you go, you're on the next flight out. So yeah, we had about a layover of, I think might have been like 3 hours, 2.5, I don't even remember. So yeah, the initial 4.5 hour trip from Berlin to where we are now turned into nearly 8, 9, 10 hours. So by the time we got here, we were exhausted, and but happy to be here and stressed out. I mean, Henri was super patient, all things considered. I think he was just exhausted by the end of it as well. Yeah, we made it. At that time, this whole thing was definitely a nightmare, but now at least, silver lining is we have a pretty good story to tell. So, yeah. But hey, that's all in the past. We're here now. We got our stuff that next day. The truck came. We put it all into our place and started settling in. And I started working a week later. And so yeah, ever since we've been having a great time, enjoying the outdoors, and yeah, don't regret it at all. So that was the moving in a rather short version. I mean, that was the essential parts, I guess. But yeah, if you have any questions or you want to know more, let me know down below, and feel free to subscribe if you feel like it. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, we have about an hour, less than an hour before the sunset, so I think we're gonna start heading back. You know, Henri's chewing up a big ass stick here, so yeah, we'll talk soon, and that's it. That's where I'll leave it. So thank you for watching, and have a great weekend. We'll chat soon. Until then, bye-bye. One more thing. Don't let anyone stop you from pursuing your dreams. Not even a grumpy customs officer. That being said, goodbye for now.